Welcome back. Good evening, good evening, good evening. We'll wait for 2-3 minutes for everybody to join in. Okay. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening, good evening. Okay. One thing which I would like to inform you that because we had this disruption for today, petroglyph geoglyphs seem not the difference is not the same. Petroglyphs are paintings; they're not etched into stone. Geoglyphs are when you etch into stone, you make a carving into it. So you carve and then there is an indentation which is left. It's a geoglyph. And very simply, Sridevi, refresh if you can't. And when we talk about petroglyphs is a totally different concept, which is the concept of very simply having painting on the surface. Subsurface would be geoglyph, on the surface would be petroglyph. Now, because we had that disruption today, what we'll do is that on next Saturday, we start at 10 a.m. We'll go from 10 to 8, and Sunday also 10 to 8, so that we can make sure that we don't fall behind. I'm just taking this as a insurance. So very simply, next Saturday, Sunday, which is the last two classes with me, on 23rd and 24th. 23rd and 24th. We lost close to half an hour, maximum 45 minutes today, but I'm taking 2 hours in hand. If I will change the time, I will inform you through email. But generally, next Saturday, remember 10 a.m. Note it, 10 to 8, 10 to 8, Saturday, Sunday, so that there's no need to go beyond the allocated week vis-a-vis that. So this is our banker, this is our insurance. If we don't need it, if you will see in your dashboard, if you'll see in your dashboard 12, believe it, then most probably I will remove it. But as of right now, I'm putting it as 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Please remember this point. I'll repeat it before we end the class today. This is to make sure that we make up for the time lost today because of the confusion and the drilling issue which we saw. Acceptable? Okay, perfect. I actually don't need 2 hours, but I'm taking it as a insurance policy that at least 1 hour we need, 1 hour in hand generally. Okay. Saturday also 10 a.m. Yes, exactly the same on Saturday and Sunday. Saturday and Sunday, as it is, the classes are recorded. If by chance you miss the first 2 hours, you will get to know. But Saturday, Sunday, 23rd and 24th. 23rd and 24th, Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Same last two. Yes, 23rd, 24th. Done. Now let's start our discussion for today. Again, just repeating, tomorrow. This is our second last weekend in a way. Last weekend, 23rd, 24th, 23rd, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Though it should have been 12 to 8, 10 to 8. We'll go from 10 to 8, 10 to 8. Right? Okay. So we were discussing about prehistoric paintings, and what we have generally discussed today is the fact that we saw Lakhudiyar, Bhimbetka as two very important sites. We know that it is Upper Paleolithic, and we also know that why do they survive for such a long time, and what is their basic reason for not being there for the Neolithic period. So just to add to it, prehistoric paintings have been found across the planet in different places as early as in the lower Paleolithic period. However, for India, it is the upper Paleolithic period. Remember this point. This is a very important point you need to understand, because now a very simple, straightforward prelims question can be made. So you have to remember upper Paleolithic times. Thereafter, in India, there are two very important sites. One by the river Suyal in Uttarakhand sector, you have the Lakhudiyar sector. Lakhudiyar means that there are multiple caves, 1 lakh caves that way. So Lakhudiyar. And the other important site is none else than Bhimbetka, very important site, which is in the Vindhya Satpura range, has caves which will date from Paleolithic to Mesolithic period, and you have close to 800 rock shelters, out of which 500 do have paintings, which tells us this was a very standard thing which was done at Bhimbetka. Now, the question is, what are the themes? What are the themes which were depicted in these paintings? Now, at Lakhudiyar, when you look at the paintings itself, they can be divided into 2 to 3 different thematics. You have man, animal, geometric patterns. And what is interesting is that humans are represented in stick form, but they are never represented in naturalistic form. They are always shown with some form of headgear, some form of ornamentation. So you can see a skirt, a form of headgear, a certain type of weaponry, certain type of headgear representing something. More than that, they were also representing animals. But if we go to Bhimbetka, it becomes even more interesting, because the most interesting image which we find in Bhimbetka and even at Lakhudiyar is a dancing theme, that people are dancing and holding their back, whilst one, the issue being is of scale, because this person is not in right scale, and the other is that it is not represented in proper detail, but still dancing imagery was there. Geometrical patterns are used. There is a superimposition of images also. This is a very important point. What do you mean by superimposition of paintings? Superimposition of painting means that I made a painting, then over a period of time it started to fade. So then I again made a painting over it. Then again it started to fade. Then again I made a painting over it. Superimposition means that there were sites in which multiple times the paintings were made. So prehistoric paintings and Lakhudiyar give us three basic concepts. Humans were represented, animals were represented, geometrical patterns were represented. Interesting imagery comes out of how the dancing imagery is there. Further, the issue with regards to how do we see is the reuse of space wherein there is superimposition. But the way Bhimbetka is much different. Bhimbetka, we get elaborate thematics. This is called the hunting scene. It is called the hunting scene. And try to imagine how they would have made this painting. They would have made this painting through memory in a dark, dingy cave with no modern tools. And look at the detail. For example, every animal is shown in a different detail to depict that it is a different animal. You can see the geometrical patterns are different. Further, they are showing arrow marks and how the blood is coming out. Further, humans are shown. This is a hunter. He has a hat. He is wearing, or he's having a bow and arrow in his hand. Further, this is why I tell you what is called the problem of scale. Can you tell me what tells you the problem of scale in this part of the image? This is a woman carrying her children. What is the problem? How do we know that it is basically a scale problem? How do we get to know that? By looking at this image. The reason is this. Is there a bag in which you can put children like that? They are trying to depict that she has children on her back. But the problem is of scale. The children were very simply put into a bag, but the point is the person who was making it was not able to depict scale. That is understandable, being it a prehistoric painting. But this issue persists, but was also resolved. This is a hunting scene. This is the most interesting scene. This is a fishing scene. And this is a household scene. Now, if you look at these very, very closely, we know that they were using fishing nets because fishing nets are shown to depict different types of fishes. Different types of colors is used and different type of depth is used. Further, the water is shown as an opaque body, which is filled of different fishes itself. But the problem here again is of scale because the fishes are out of proportion, sometimes as big as the net, bigger than the net. We also know that they had access to turtles. The point of the matter is, if we did not have this image, we would never get to know that these scenes did exist or this was the type of day-to-day life. But a very interesting fact about the household images, can you make out a major, very modern, sophisticated feature in the household scene? Can anybody point that out? Subhash has already done that. Can anybody tell me that? What is that very interesting concept which you can see? It's not the fish. I'm talking about painting wise, not as what is depicted. As a painting technique, there's one technique which we have not seen previously but is shown here. Yes, depth. This person is in the background and this person are in the front. This is called depth. The person shown in the background is seen as, and by changing the scale itself, they've tried to show depth. This is a very interesting thing. To show distance, they've showed depth also. Now, what is even more interesting is, see how a person, when he is eating something, it is shown in his belly itself. This shows their understanding of how food works or how food is generally. So very simply, when we talk about the hunting scene, the household scene, the fishing scene, we have no imagination, we have no source which tells us about these things. But because of this very beautiful depiction, we have a very invaluable source of history. Now, if you go a step further, in the Chalcolithic period, certain caves also depict an agricultural field. Agricultural field. And if you look at it, by showing different geometries, what are they trying to show? What are they trying to show by showing different geometries? Yes, very good. Crop rotation, multiple cropping. So you can see that every different pattern shows a different crop. So in that sense, if you look at it, from the way they've shown birds to the way they are showing cropping pattern, the prehistoric painting is equally comparable to modern paintings, but is also a very important concept of concept of what we call as depiction and day-to-day life. So the first question was, if you remember, was what are the themes? Themes can be household, themes can be fishing, hunting, agricultural field, could be humans, could be animals, could be plants. So very simply, are we clear with regards to the thematic? Are we clear with regards to the thematic? What can be the themes? Thematic is clear, because then I'll talk about techniques then. Okay. No, the circle is just a random geometrical pattern. It's not a well. Where are plants? This is plants. Plants, 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 plants. This is also showing plants only. Okay. Now, now let's talk about techniques. Technique or characteristics is something again which can be asked as a mains question. So it is important that you learn it and understand it. So in the upper Paleolithic period, what we see is that there is representation of green and dark red colors for animals. Different types of animals are shown. Don't have to learn it. Don't learn the names of the animals, but we know that these animals existed because of these figurines itself. Humans are in stick figure form, so we know that they are going to be shown in stick figure. The next very interesting thing is that there are two types of paintings which we see. One is called wash painting, and the other one is called geometry non-wash. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that, for example, in this image, can you see the background, or can you see through the fish itself? Can you see through the fish? Yes or no? Yes. But in this image, can you see through the fish? No. This is called wash painting, and this is called non-wash. Very simply, when you make a figure like this is wash, non-wash. Wash, non-wash. This is wash because you can see through the part which is there as an open. This is a non-wash painting. I have filled that circle up, so you cannot see the background. This would be wash, this would be non-wash. Wash, non-wash, clear? A very specific term which is used in painting. Okay. Thereafter, a very interesting thing. Green color is used for dancers, and red color is used for hunters. This is called occupational differentiation in color. You can't call it gendered because you will then be assuming that all dancers are female. It is an occupational thing that if you hunt, you are shown in a different color. And if you're a gatherer and if you're a dancer, you're shown in a different color. This is again a very sophisticated understanding of of the concept of painting. Very interesting that way. Now, when we go to the Mesolithic period, it becomes even more interesting in a way that mostly humans are shown in stylistic manner, animals are shown in naturalistic manner. These are two words which I introduced to you. Mostly, animals will be shown in most realistic pattern or manner, On the other hand, humans will be shown with ornamentation, styles, headgear. There are also certain paintings which are just dots, handprints, fingerprints, just as a form of expressing oneself. Thematic, as they go, it becomes more sophisticated but smaller also. Very big paintings were there, but they become smaller and smaller. The hunting scenes can have a lot of different elements: people, spear, arrow, bow, stick, and primitive traps and snares, which is nothing but nets, are also shown. It is also interesting to note that hunters have simple ornaments and clothes on them. Men could wear a painted mask or a headgear. Women could be shown both nude and with clothes. Animals depicted again are very, very, very diverse, very, very diverse. Don't have to learn it. But by the time we come to Chalcolithic, we also start to see that the colors start to change. In Bhimbetka, certain Chalcolithic paintings, white, yellow, orange, red, purple, brown, green, black, all are used. But most common is white and red. Can anybody guess where does the red come from? Where does the color red come from? It's already written on the PPT, but you already know the answer to it. Where does the red come from? Okay. Red, red comes from hematite, which is iron oxide, and white would mostly come from what we call as limestone, from limestone. So very simply, green would come from a rock called chalcedony, which gives a green color. But hematite, gerua, and limestone, which is chuna, are the two most common. And that is why limestone used to interact with the rock very, very well. Now, before we move to cave paintings, let me consolidate the what we call as prehistoric prehistoric paintings or petroglyphs. Petroglyphs. Now, when we talk about prehistoric and petroglyphs, very simply, multiple thematics, multiple thematics. Second, sophisticated understanding of color and representation. Third, colors are derived from multiple sources, which are chemicals in the rock form. Fourth, animals depicted in naturalistic form, while humans represented in stylistic form. And last but not the least, very simply, the techniques, representation, and the way of superimposition makes them comparable to modern paintings. This is a very important point you need to understand. That we don't call them rudimentary because they are very sophisticated that ways, very sophisticated that ways, because the representation is very interesting. So anybody has any issue in any of these different aspects? Anybody? Have to be more vocal. Umera thematic means different themes. Different themes, household, hunting, dancing, etc. Colors don't come from oxidation of the rocks. If hematite is applied over a rock which has maybe, for example, a little bit of aluminium or a little bit of different other types of chemicals, it is the iron which interacts with the rock itself. Or for example, if the rock is of iron and then limestone is applied on it, they didn't know that it is iron or it is actually limestone. They just used it before the color itself. Right? Can I now move to the concept of murals? Please have to say yes or no. Okay. Now, now I'm coming to that. What do murals mean, Nitish? Wait. See, murals are paintings done on very on very big surfaces. Can be walls, ceiling, ceiling, or any large surface. So, for example, a mural can be on your wall, can be on the ceiling. It's just a very big painting. To be very precise, wall or ceiling paintings are called murals. But then you would say that how are murals different from petroglyphs? Murals are not done in caves. They're not done in caves. They are done in man-made caves or man-made structures itself. But there's a difference. There is one called mural and there's something called fresco. Something called mural, something called fresco. These two things are very different to each other. When we talk about these two, I need a blank slide. 1 second. Mural and fresco are different to each other. Are different to each other in this way that murals are done once the surface of the wall is complete and dry. So it is done over the wall surface. For example, your wall which is in front of you or on your sides, that is already a finished wall. If you make something on it, it's a mural. But fresco is a subtype of mural. Frescoes are paintings which are done on a surface which is still wet with the solution, most probably water, and is done with water soluble paints so that they get absorbed by the wall plaster or surface wall plaster. Wall plaster. See, there is a difference. There is a difference. I made a wall, I did a putty, and then I painted it. I allowed the putty to dry, then I allowed the paint to dry. This is called a fresh. This is called a mural. That I made a proper wall, putty, paint, let it dry, and then drew on it. On the other hand, a fresco is totally different. Fresco is that when I applied a plaster, a putty, or any form of a material which makes it very smooth, it has water in it, and I take a paint which is water soluble and then touch, then start to paint when the wall is still dry, is still wet. What will happen is that because it is water soluble paint, the paint will get absorbed by the wall itself. So when you paint on a dry surface, it is called a mural. When you paint on a wet surface, you call it a fresco. Tell me, which will be more durable, a fresco or a mural? Which will be more durable? A fresco, because fresco, the paint has been absorbed by the wall itself. Very simply, it's not complicated. There's a wall. You understand? I have made a brick wall. I have made a brick wall. So in your house, can you see the bricks? Can you see the bricks of your wall inside the house? No, which means that there is a layer of cement which has been applied. There's a layer of cement which has been applied, and then a coat of putty has been applied, and it has then finally been painted with a certain amount of paint, with a paint, for example, white paint. So now this is called a finished wall. I have a wall which is made out of brick, has a putty, but what I did was I have painted on it a small paint. Once it will dry, this is a called a finished surface. I have finished the surface. So this is now the wall. I have allowed the paint to dry. You cannot see the wall. I have allowed the paint to dry. Now what I do is that I take a red color and then make a painting of a man, and he is playing basketball or something like that, whatever it may be. This is called a mural or a fresco. This is called a mural or a fresco. This is called a mural because I allowed the base paint to get dried and then I did a red color over it. How would I do the same thing with the fresco is that I would again have the wall. Now what I did was I applied, one second, I now applied a putty on it. But now what I've done is that I'm not letting the putty dry. Rather, I am taking a water soluble paint and putting it when it is already wet. It is wet. So now what is going to happen is that the putty is going to then absorb the paint. So I am doing it when it is wet. This is when it is dry. So then it changes from a mural into a fresco. Makes sense. When the surface is wet, it is fresco, more durable, color is absorbed by the wall. And when it is dry surface, mural can be anything. Mural is a bigger word, fresco is a specific word. Makes sense. Fresco is a type of mural. Both are murals for sure. Yes. Mural, fresco, done. Come on. This is very fundamental question which can come in the examination. Please tell me yes or no. Yes? Okay, perfect. Now, if you understand this, mural dry, fresco wet, very good. If you can understand this, let's go to Ajanta. Let's go to Ajanta, where we find the first murals in India, the oldest surviving murals in India. Remember the oldest surviving murals in India. We know that it was made by the Vakatakas. We know that it was made by Harisena. But murals date as as early as in the Shunga period, which is quite interesting. The Vakatakas actually properly make the Ajanta caves, but from the Shunga period itself, the walls are giving us certain images. So Harisena institutionalized the Ajanta caves, but the walls are giving testament to the fact that after the post-Gupta, post-Mauryan period itself, we have paintings. Now, most of the paintings are of the Gupta period, and thereafter the Vakatakas institutionalized the place properly. But here the paintings matter to us. In what we call as cave number 1, we have Vajrapani. Thereafter, we have Manjushri, and we have Bodhisattva Padampani. In cave number 16, we have the dying princess. Very simply, the images need to be now analyzed by you. Now, understand this point. They can't ask you a question on Ajanta caves because they can't give you an image of Ajanta caves. And you obviously are not going to paint this in the examination. So mural fresco, they can only ask you a conceptual question and they can ask you features. So what I am going to do is I'm going to give you features, continuity and change. Are you getting my point? Nobody is going to ask you write a short note on the Bodhisattva Padampani painting in Ajanta, because for that you would have to then make the painting and then tell them how it is. Rather, they will ask you a generic question. What are the features of Ajanta paintings? Are you getting my point? Why am I saying it? That what type of question can come? This is a very important point you need to know. What to do with this information. See, now there are 4 paintings there. One, this is Bodhisattva Padampani. If you know the book Upinder Singh's book, which is used for optional, this is the cover page itself. This is Manjushri, and the point is, if you look at these 3, you will realize that there is a certain type of feature which is persisting. The first feature, can anybody guess the first feature just by looking at the painting itself? Can anybody tell me what is the first feature by looking at the image itself? It's in front of you. Very good. Lack of depth and issues of scale. But what is even problematic than this is no proper boundary or borders. We will say borders. No proper borders. See, the problem in this image is everything is cluttered together. There is what is called cluttering. And that is because I can't make out where one image is starting and one image is ending. If I tell you, if I tell you that there is a horse here who is as big as this woman, then the issue of scale comes through. And because there is no depth, I don't know if this lady and this lady who is in front. And because there's lack of bordering, the images are very cluttered and mixing together. One more thing which is there is you have brown color, and because of that, of dark colors, because of dark colors, the images are very dull, are very dull. This is not true for all of them, but mostly they are like that. So there is lack of depth, there is lack of scale, no proper bordering, there is cluttering, and it is an issue of dullness. But if I come to the Bodhisattva Padampani, who's holding the iconic lotus in his hand, we get to know about three more features. Three more features. One is called Buddhist half closed eyes. These are called meditative spiritual eyes. You'll find it here also. You'll find it here also, in which the eyes are always half closed. That gives a certain sense of what we call as certain sense of meditativeness. Other than that, you see one more thing. This is called protruding lips, or what we call as pouting lips. Pouting is done. These are very big lips which are there, and they always make it like this. Big lips, protruding lips. And this is a very important very important feature of the Ajanta caves. Is this making sense? Is this making sense? Making sense? Yes or no? Are you able to see what I am seeing in these images, or what we as historians see in these images? See, I could have easily given you these points, but I'm showing you these images because it is important that you understand and in a way live the culture with me. This is Avalokeshwar or Bodhisattva Padam Pani, Bodhisattva Sattva Padampani, and this is Manjushri, Bodhisattva Mother. You can see the issue of lack of border, but one thing is for sure: elaborate headgear, very very elaborate, detailed headgear, detailed headgear. So we have ascertained the issue of bordering, the issue of depth and scale, the issue of dark coloring, which makes it very dull, and cluttering. And we have now identified two very important features of Buddhist imagery. Everybody is with me till this point? No issues? If it isn't, I'll show you something very interesting as we go further into paintings. Yes? This is called the uh, Tribhaga Bodhisattva Padampani, Lokeshwar sitting in a hall. There's no specific name for it. This is again Avalokeshwar only, but it's the hall imagery where there is a proper congregation that was. Okay. Now, when we go to Ellora, a lot of you are not saying anything. Either you're fascinated or you are confused. You need to tell me that, because this is something which is technical, again quite technical when it comes to our understanding. So you have to be very clear of what you are doing. Are we all on the same page with regards to what we are doing here? You have no way that you can write this in the examination with the image. Just note the point. So, very simply, when we talk about paintings, we are trying to understand what are the features which mark the Ajanta cave paintings. And those are lack of depth, scale, proper bordering, cluttering, Buddhist protruding eyes, or Buddhist half-closed eyes is coming as a feature. And over and above that, protruding lips has become a very interesting feature which we see. Now, according to the British, according to people who want to divide us, the argument would be that these features would only be in Ajanta. But what we will see is that the same artists are making images for the Ajanta caves, for the Buddhists, for the Jains, and even for the images which we see later. So when we talk about Ellora caves, Ellora, again, murals are there, but it is now done on the ceiling. It is on the roof, mostly limited to the Kailasha temple, which means that it is mostly towards the later period which we see it. So there can be carvings on the cave, and then several centuries later, there were other things which were added. Beautiful. This is the Apsara painting, very famous that way. And we find paintings related to all three, obviously, at Ellora. Now, if you look at this painting again, you will realize the issues still remain. No borders and dull colors, and more than that, they are trying to push in too much. Again, cluttering, and dark colors, which means that we never are able to make out what are the borders. And the colors have faded, obviously, but because they are dark, they are even less clear. So what we see is that the issues of Ajanta remain in Ellora, which tells us that very simply, the painters were the same. Now, if I go to Bagh, which is connected to Ajanta, we see a improvement. These are the Bagh caves, considered the extension of Ajanta caves. Figures are more earthly and human, but strong outline. This is a very important point. Strong outline. Finally, we can see their borders. Now tell me one thing. Out of 1, 2, 3, and 4, who is in the front? Who is in the front? 1, 2, 3, and 4. Very good. 1 and 4, if you go by that perspective. And the bordering allows for depth to come through. So partial depth is there, border is there, and one more very interesting thing. You can see that the painter is the same, because half closed eyes, protruding lips, and the colors persist. So I will call, or we should call, Bagh a progression or a regression on the Ajanta culture or Ajanta paintings. Progression, regression. It's a progression, because they have now been able to resolve the issue with regards to bordering. And with bordering, partial depth also comes through. Now, Arnamalai caves, unfortunately, the images are not available in public domain in the Vellore district. These caves are Jain, very faint, because they were actually made on a surface which was a natural cave, but more than that, they were exposed to the, very simply, the elements quite a lot. Paintings are again done on wall and ceiling, and it represents Jain imagery. Arnamalai I have only given you because this was in the news. Uh, last to last year, Arnamalai was mentioned in the Hindu newspaper. That is why I have given you. Now, the most celebrated came in the examination. Also, if you've seen the 2023 paper, was in the news quite a lot. Is the Seetan Vansal cave or Aravai Koil, which comes from again Tamil Nadu, Jain caves, and the only caves which were made during the what we call as Pandya period. Pandya period. They are again very close to the Ajanta and the Bagh, but you see, Jain caves have Buddhist imagery, and you can make that out by the fact that you again have half closed eyes, you have the lips, you have dark colors, but how do I know that it is an extension of Ajanta and Bagh both? How do I know that? How do I know that? Come on, tell me. Very good. Borders. Borders are there, which means that this was made after Bagh caves. And in a way, the issue of bordering has been resolved, but the problem of coloring has not been resolved. So this is the set of caves which are generally considered important vis-a-vis murals. So for the examination, you have to remember Ajanta, Ellora, Bagh, Arna, Malai, thereafter Seetan Vansal. Anybody has any issue in remembering these five and how they are related to each other in a way? They all represent a tradition of gradual progression in technique. In technique. Yes, makes sense? Does this make sense? That how it is representing a progression from Ajanta to Ellora to Bagh to Arnamalai to Seetan Vansal. It is a story of continuity and change. Now, after representing these, we have a painting tradition which comes from the Vijayanagara period, and this is called Lepakshi temple. And Lepakshi temple, very beautiful. On the ceiling itself, I got the privilege of actually going to this temple, and they look even very, very elaborate and much, much more beautiful in person. But they have a very interesting peculiarity. The Veerbhadra temple in Lepakshi, which is just 80 to 90 kilometers from Bangalore, it represents the Mahabharata, Ramayana, and has Lord Vishnu, but there's an absence of primary colors. If you look at this line in the examination, just automatically mark Lepakshi. Because if you look at this image, blue color in particular, primary color is red, blue, and green. And somehow, blue is missing in most of the images. So particularly blue is missing in the paintings, which make these paintings very interesting. But as you can see, the color scheme is changing. And because this is Brahmanical imagery, Hinduistic imagery, the thematic has also changed from bodhisattvas and from images of the Jataks and the Jain stories. Now they're moving towards Ramayana, Mahabharata. The culmination of this process of change, when it comes to the Ajanta Bagh tradition, comes in this, which is called the Badami caves of Karnataka. They represent again a development in this story. Let's add it to this. The odd one out is Badami. The odd one out is Lepakshi because it is a totally different period, totally different thematic. But when we talk about Badami, human figures are graceful, compassionate, half closed eyes, as we know, protruding lips, made by the Chalukyan kings. And the simple point is, why are they so important? Because we know that now the colors have become lighter. So it is again a progression on Bag because all features are there: half closed eyes, borders, lips. But color has gone down one notch. So in a way, Badami is like the culmination of Ajanta Bag Ellora tradition in that regard. Thereafter, the last known Buddhist tradition, and this came in the examination as a mains question, the last known Buddhist tradition of painting was from mural to what we call as miniature Pothi tradition painting. Miniature Pothi tradition painting. You would have seen this in your life for sure. These are called Pothis. They open in landscape. You would have seen it very in the religious places. They have these long, small, long things on which they have written. These are called Pothis. Now, what the Palas used to do is that they did not used to make murals, but they rather used to make very big, very small images. So if there was a Pothi like this, they would make holes here. They would make a painting here and then write here. Have you seen a Pothi? Have you seen these very old books which are there in, for example, you have in Varanasi or in Kashi or in religious places? These Pandits will have these Pothis in that regard. If unfortunately you've seen the movie Ram Setu, Akshay Kumar one, there's a whole story, there's a whole setup on the Pothi itself, how there is there. Have you seen that? Uh, I hope you've seen that. Okay. Now, they can be turned, yes, page by page. Very good. So they are mostly done on palm leaves or vellum paper. Vellum paper is very common in South India. Both palm leaves are very common in North India. Now, why is it important? Can anybody tell me who this person or who this personality is? Can anybody tell me that? I'll give you a hint, which is Vajrayanic Buddhism. Yes, very good. This is Tara. Bodhisattva Tara. Tara is very, very important in what we call as Vajrayanic Buddhism. So this is a representation of Tara, and you can see how now there are demonic beings and beings which are very, very mystical. And this is the Vajrayanic concept, Tantra Mantra concept. So very simply, the images are mostly Vajrayanic Buddhist in theme. Pothis are a wooden frame. Lone single figure with smaller figures are there. Groups are not there, mostly one with small figures. And two very important painters we know out of the Pala period, very, very important for you. Dimman and Vitpala are two painters which were known to make these pothis in that regard. Now, you can see they use red color quite a lot. Red color is used quite a lot, which again links up with the Tantric Tantra Mantra tradition, which comes through Vajrayanic Buddhism itself. Last of all traditions, before we go to, we take a break and go to, for example, the Mughal painting section or the Delhi Sultanate Mughal painting, is called Apabhransham School of Art, very common in the Gujarat, Mewar, Rajasthan sector. And here you will see 3 to 4 very interesting things. First is that, is there an issue of scale and depth in this? Is there an issue of scale and depth in this? Yes. Scale is an issue. Depth is an issue. Scale, because the elephant is as big as the bull is as big as the lion. Depth, because this and this seem to be in the same thing itself. But because this is a new school is coming from the Gujarat and Maharashtra sector, not Gujarat Maharashtra, but Gujarat Rajasthan sector. Rajasthan sector, you have vibrant colors, use of gold color, but they are known for their very interesting things. These are called fish eyes. Very long eyes like this. Fish eyes. And with fish eyes, they are also known for their sharp nose and double chin. And double chin, which is that they will make something like this very sharp nose and they will show a double chin of that person. You can see double chin, sharp nose, eyes. This is a very common thematic throughout the Apramvansham school, but the colors have become vibrant. Use of blue, gold, red. Is this in contrast to the Buddhist tradition? Yes or no? If I look at the color scheme itself, does it look in contrast to the Buddhist tradition? Why am I doing this? I'm trying to make an image in your mind. When you look at an image, automatically these two images should come. Or when I say Buddhist and when I say Abhransham, there should be a difference. So, Jain and Vaishnavite tradition is there. Gita Govinda is used. 11th to 15th century, Gujarat Mewar region. Colors have symbolic meaning. That is why gold is used quite a lot. The color of auspiciousness. Depiction of Jain and Hindu iconography. Red, yellow, ochre used quite a lot. Fish-eyed, pointed nose, double chin. Angular, Kalpa Sutra and the Kalachara Katha. These are two texts which have these images in that regard. So, before we go for paintings in medieval India, let me summarize everything for you. We've done prehistoric painting. We've done mural tradition. We've done multiple. We've done Ajanta. We've done Bagh. We've done Badami. We've done Ellora. We've done not up branch. We've done Lepak Arna Malai, and we've done Lepakshi. Yes, thereafter, and Seetan Vansal. And Seetan Vansal. Thereafter, we've gone into miniature paintings, in which you have Pala and you have Apabhramsa. 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 Okay. Now, they have a certain set of features. They have a certain set of features. Can you just remember the features for me and revise through images? If you can do that, this area is one of the easiest, and rather next week I'll show you there. The questions out of this area are also very easy. Two books in Abhrancha which have a lot of different images, which out of which one I've shown to you. We have done under paintings these three. 1, 2, 3. Anybody has any issue in this? No issue? Now tell me one thing. If you go through the Nitin Singhania chapter of painting, is this method better than actually going through the book? You tell me. Fish eyes are for Pala school. No, fish eyes for Apabhransham school. Which is a better method? Random features given on a page, or looking at the image and understanding the feature? Which is better? Image. So my only request is going to be, when you revise through images also, because never will you forget what you see. There's a standard scientific research. What we see, we remember more. And that is why if you read a book and you watch a movie of the same book, you will remember the movie more than the book itself. Because when there is a certain amount of imagery which comes to your mind, you will remember it more. Done? Done, done, done. I'll give you a break because I know it is becoming heavy and I need your attention for medieval Mughal. So can I give you a break here? I leave it to you 10 or 15 minutes because I need your attention for 1 hour for sure. It is on you how much time you want for that 1 hour attention. And 1 hour 7 to 8, I want you to be very, very attentive. So do you want a 10-minute break or 15-minute break? Come on, I'll push a poll to you. I leave it to you for to decide. Two options are there. A means 10 minutes, B means 15 minutes. Answer. And don't do 50-50, please. Well, I knew it would be 15, so I will see you at 7 p.m. now. As it is, we have 1 hour in hand, so it's okay with 5 minutes. Remember, next week, Saturday, we start at 10. We are making up for the time we lost today because of the issue related to the noise, right? So I'll see you at 7 p.m. Welcome back. Ready? Last 1 hour. Can we start? Yes. Okay. Now, when we talk about medieval India, there's a problem. Medieval India and paintings, there's a problem. And what is that problem? Can anybody guess? What is the issue which is there? Paintings and medieval India. Be it Delhi Sultanate or be it Mughal India. What is the issue? Cannot represent the human or animal or plant features or images. It is un-Islamic. Now the point is that when we talk about medieval India in Delhi Sultanate period, they were true to their cause that Delhi Sultans never patronized painters or painting tradition. They were good builders, but they never patronized anybody because generally it is considered un-Islamic. So when we talk about Delhi Sultans, there is rather preference to manuscripts, written things. The only thing which we find which dates to this period was actually what not patronized by the Delhi Sultans is a book called Niyamat Nama. There's a small painting tradition, but only geometrical pattern, which is also called the Lodi Khuladar style. But we never associate the Delhi Sultans with any form of what we call as painting tradition. So the only text we find is is Niyamat Nama, and Niyamat Nama is basically a cookery book. Cookery book. It's a book on gastronomy, on dishes. And as you can see, it is quite rudimentary because there is an issue of scale, there's an issue of depth. But this image actually is of a very, very, very cookery means uh, dishes, Sanjeev Kapoor, master chef cookery. So very simply, this image is of a very iconic snack in India. Can anybody guess that snack by looking at the image? Recipe book, if you want to call it. Sure, why not? Anybody guess? Yes, samosa. They have not been able to represent it. The inscription next to it actually tells us that this is the recipe of samosa, how to make it, how long it should be kept in the oil. In the same way, this the Kahwa tradition, how to make very, very what we call as strong tea. This is the representation of that. Sometimes represented as wine. The inscription, however, will talk about wine also, but the image is about kahwa. So there's reference to kahwa and to wine both. However, it is basically, again, wine is something which is not allowed within Islamic traditions in the public sphere. So that is why there is no image of it. Now, when we come to Mughal India, things change. When we come to Mughal India, things change. Any issue with Delhi Sultanate? You understand what the constraint is. The only text which is dated to this period is the Niyamatnama. Anybody has any issue in Delhi Sultanate? Do you understand why Delhi Sultans never patronized painters or painting traditions? Anybody any issue in this? Okay, no. Now, let me check one thing that do I have? Hmm. Okay. Now, when we talk about Mughal India, the Mughals are a little bit different in the sense that they never patronized or developed mural paintings, which is paintings which are public, but they had their own tradition, painters, and workshops for miniature paintings for personal consumption. So Mughal paintings till today go for a lot of money, but they were never for public consumption. Very small miniature paintings they are. Now you will say, sir, then didn't anybody protest? Did anybody not like the fact that the Mughals or Mughal sultans, Mughal emperors were actually consuming images which is considered not good or something un-Islamic? The answer to that question is going to be what? There will be people who will protest, but who has the guts to challenge Akbar, or to challenge Jahangir, or to challenge Shah Jahan? These are not ordinary people. These are emperors. And the power and the fierceness and the level of respect which they hold within their empire, nobody can challenge, and they don't care also. So they were themselves very, very straightforward in saying that we will not do, because their monuments have no murals. So they were very clear in not doing public display of paintings, but within their own personal sphere, they were very, very good painters themselves also. So Akbar, Jahangir painted themselves, were taught by also very important painters coming out of Persia. So very simply, Mughals kept it as a miniature painting tradition. Please understand this point. Why did they keep it miniature? For personal consumption. Thereafter, what are the paintings which we have generally? We'll talk about the features, which is generally Mughal paintings are a very interesting mix of initially of only Indian and Persian, but later European influences also. We'll talk about that. But I will systematically tell you who adds what to Mughal paintings in that sense. But when you talk about Babar, didn't have time, as it is something very, very what we call as need a lot of money to patronize people. But he did produce one thing, which is that he patronized an artist called Bizhad. Bizhad then gave an illustration of the Mughal family. We know so much about Babar, his grandfather, and his connection to Timur because of the same reason. Because Bizhad's painting give us such illustrations about who he was, how was he related to Timur. When we talk about Humayun, Humayun initially did not have a lot of interest, but when he went or fled to Iran in 1540, he develops a certain interest in painting in the Safavid Empire, and he will fall in love with painting there. When he will come back in 1555, he will bring with him two very important masters of paintings, and this comes in the examination. Mir Sayyid Ali and Abdus Samad. Abdus Samad and Mir Sayyid Ali are two painters who Humayun brought with him from Central Asia, and they will become the two pillars of Mughal paintings. On the other hand, he was also the one who built up the first studio, a painting studio called Atelier. The word atelier is basically a painting studio. You have seen it for sure in your school. Your painting teacher would have a whole setup in which there would be fruits in the middle and then people would sit around it. That is called an atelier setup, a painting studio in that regard. So, painting studios, ateliers for Astia was Humayun. When we talk about Humayun's contribution, Humayun did not do a lot of miniature, but what he did was he had a very interesting painting which was called the Princes of the House of Timur. Basically, it's a painting in which a cloth or a tent, side of a tent, was painted, a very unusual thing, 1 to 1.5 meters, very big painting, which was on the side of the tent in which he used to stay when he used to go to war. And this was to remind him of his family in that regard. So, very simply, this painting, we don't have the whole painting, but this is what survives. This is done on cloth, and this is one side of a tent in that regard. What you will see here is the use of blue is very common in Central Asia when it comes to images. Other than that, there is subdued colors. There's an issue of what we call as depth, because everybody is in the same scale itself, though there is a little bit of partial depth which comes here itself. But the point is, if we zoom in, the coloring is such that you can't make out a lot of things, but the clothing is Central Asian and the coloring is also Central Asian, so it is still very Safavid like and not Mughalish in that regard. Now comes Akbar. Anybody has any issue with Humayun, Babar, or Delhi Sultanate? Akbar, if I move, we believe that that part is done. As always, I will give you a table in which I'll summarize everything. Anybody has any issue in Babar, Humayun, or Delhi Sultanate, or what have we done till this point? Anyone? Any issue? Come on. No issue. Very good. Now, let's talk about Akbar. Akbar is the one who institutionalized the painting tradition in India with regards to the Mughals. Second, he developed proper karkhanas, which is workshops, and tasveer khana, which is nothing but studios. Third, employed a lot of painters in royal service. And what was a peculiarity about that was that his painters were mostly Hindu and of lower caste and varna. Daswant is an example of that. He further, he wanted to develop Narrative paintings. What do I mean by this? Paintings are done to represent or narrate a story. What is there a modern day example of a narrative painting? Can anybody give me a modern day example of a narrative painting? You've read it in your childhood also. You've read it in your childhood also. Comics. Comics are nothing but narrative paintings, right? The images in the comics, do they narrate a story? Batman, Superman, Archies, anything you've read. Or you would have seen it, comic strips come in the newspaper. The Amul girl, or for example, you have any standard comic book strip comic writer. What do they do? They tend to represent and narrate a story. Very good. So he wanted to develop narrative paintings. Two major painting projects were the Tuti Nama and the Hamza Nama. These are two texts which were converted to paintings. Tutinama is the story of how a parrot tells a story. Tuti means parrot. Hamza Nama is the story, a very celebrated story in Islam of the uncle of Prophet Muhammad. And therefore, Hamza, Amir Hamza, his name was. Hamza Nama and Tuti Nama are very standard texts in Islam. He did not want to read it as it is, he was illiterate. So he wanted to watch it. He wanted to have a book in which he could read, just look at the images and get the story. So basically, he wanted Tuti Nama and Hamza Nama to be converted into, in a way, narrated or what is called as narrative illustrations. Narrative illustrations. Anybody has any issue in these 5 points I've written? Narrative illustrations. Narrative illustration means painting. Narrative tells you a story. Okay. So when we talk about Akbar, let's talk about his concept. Painted by Abdul Samad. This is a different person. That was Abdul Samad. This is Abdul Samad. Ordered creation of many paintings, was very particular about detail, laid the foundation of Mughal painting, and I'll show you his images. It is a blend of Persian, Indian, and European art, but very less influence. It is after Jahangir that European influence starts to do that. He developed studios and workshops, which are karkhanas, and these could employ close to 50 to 60 people, because somebody would have to make the paper, somebody would write, somebody would illustrate, somebody would then bind. So very simply, it was a very big task to make these things. Now, the Tutinama was the first thing which he translated from a text into a narrative illustration. It's called the Tales of Parrot. 52 parts are there, and 250 miniature paintings were made for the Tutinama. So 250 images were used to illustrate a 52-part Persian story. This was given to the two very important painters which had come with Humayun, Abdus Samad and Mir Sayyid Ali. It took 5 years to complete. So 250 miniatures in 5 years. How many miniatures every year? Come on. Yes, the score of Sri Lanka today, 50. So 50, imagine in a year they make 50. So in a month, how many do they make? 4 to 5. 4, not 5, but 4. So this is basically the effort which goes. 4 images in a month. That is the time it takes to make them. So imagine when it came to Hamza Nama, which is the story of the uncle of Prophet Muhammad. It was 14 volumes, 1400 illustrations. 1400 illustrations. Began in 1562. He also had a Tasweer Khana where he used to also learn how to draw. But what is the peculiarity? Most of his painters were Hindus. Yeah, 1 week per page, 1 week, one painting. Interestingly, most of them were lower caste. A very interesting case of Daswant. Daswant was one of his most celebrated painters, and he was out of a palki bearer, what we call as community caste itself. Salaried employees. Other things which he converted was Gulistan, Dabarnama, Khamza-e Nizami, Baristan, and Gulistan was a very known text which was again very common, a masterpiece which was created at Fatehpur Sikri, and the Tasweer Khan at Fatehpur Sikri did it. Now, this is the institutionalized past. I want to analyze Akbar's paintings also. Anybody has any issue in the features and contributions? I have to discuss the features now. Then anybody has the issues with contribution of Akbar to Mughal tradition or painting tradition in India? Anybody has any issue in these 5 points? Have to be very clear about what you're saying. Yes or no? No. Now let's analyze Akbar's paintings. The way Tuti Nama was made, you can automatically see certain issues. First issue is of scale. Scale issue. This person is equal to one story of the building itself. More than that, you can see depth issue, because the 2D-ness is coming through. Now, please pay attention. In Nitin Singhania, it is written that under Akbar itself, 3D-ness started to develop. That statement is incorrect. He is randomly picked it up from a source which did not analyze the paintings correctly. So if somebody asks you when did depth and 3D-ness really develop, it is not Akbar, but it is Jahangir. So the point is that though the color scheme is vibrant and Rajasthani influence is there, the problem you can see is of scale. You can see what is, are you able to understand why am I saying that there's an issue of depth and scale? Both are problematic issues, because this person is equal to one whole story of building, and though they are trying to show that they would have made this in this way, then it would have actually been 3D. Then it would have actually been 3D. But the problem is this corner, this is a crooked corner. Crooked corners you get, for example, here also crooked corner you get when you have depth issues. This is called non 3D image. Colors are still vibrant, scale issue is still there. But there's one more issue with Akbar. It's called cluttering, because he wanted to represent a lot of things in the same theme. This is called multi-perspective. Multi-perspective images, wherein there's one story which is here, one story which is going on here, one story which is going on here, one story is here, one story is here, multiple perspective. Now imagine that this person is equal to 3 stories of this tower, which makes no sense. So the point is that if you look at his images very closely, too much of cluttering is there. Too much of cluttering is there. Everything is happening in hot. But the problem is, as it is narrative, they are telling us it is a scene of a story. And that is why the problem is that he's having cluttering, color scheme, Rajasthani, but depth issues there. Now, the testimony to the fact that it is based on depth issue and 2D-ness is the portrait of Akbar made during his period or his rule. And the problem is this. The point is the feed should have been represented like this, if you represent feet like this, then you are basically representing feet in 3D way. When you stand side to side, are your feet like this, one after the other, one following the other? No. So they wanted to represent this, which is 1 feet here, 1 feet here, but they were not able to. Rather, something like this. And this is a true testimony to the fact that there is an issue of 3D, 2Dness, there's an issue of 3Dness, there's an issue of depth. However, as you can see, vibrant colors, Rajasthani colors, that I don't need to tell you now that Akbar had a very strong Rajasthani influence generally. So Akbar has depth issues, scale issues, 2Dness, but has now pioneered a certain tradition. Now comes Jahangir. Anybody, Akbar, want to discuss with me? Akbar, Akbar, Akbar. Anyone? No, yes, have to say something. No. Okay. Now, when we talk about Jahangir, when we talk about Jahangir, Jahangir is the highest point of Mughal painting. Now, his contributions are equally interesting that ways. Changed the focus and emphasis of Mughal paintings from from narrative illustrations to individual portraits and naturalistic imagery. Naturalistic imagery, wherein the imagery is such that it is naturalistic, moving away from narrative illustrations. He wanted individual portraits, no cluttering, no story he wants to hear. Further, very strong European influence in his paintings. And who met Jahangir from the British side? Or when the British came, did they meet Jahangir? Very good. Hawkins and one more person, Thomas Roe. Very good. Every time the British met with Jahangir, which in turn led to the 1613 and 15 Farman, he was given globe, spectacles, hourglass as gifts. And Jahangir was fascinated by these things. His name is Jahan Ka Gir, the one who rules the world, Jahangir. And he will literally make the globe a part of his paintings as much as possible, because by holding the globe in his hand or on standing on the globe itself, he literally wanted to say, I'm the ruler of the world. I will show you these images in that regard. But he will have very strong European influence. Thereafter, he also started to have decorated borders of paintings, and most important, 3Dness and depth were now part of the images More than that, images of animals were very realistic, as it is because of the fact that it is naturalistic. And Jahangir paid a lot of attention to the karkhanas. He always used to have a painter with him whenever he used to go to hunting, and any animal which he had never seen, he used to make a painting of that. So, maintained his own studio other than Akbar's atelier, painting of hunting scenes, birds and flowers, keen naturalist, and paintings of birds and animals are becoming more and more realistic. Narrative paintings became less important, portrait painting became more important, brushwork is finer, lighter, and Jahangir Nama consisted images of anything and everything, even small spiders fighting in that regard. Paintings are gorgeously decorated. You can see decorated border. This is called a decorated border. Over and above that, the European influence is very pronounced in the way I will show you that it will become very evident that European elements are coming through. And he was now getting inspired by the portraits of kings and queens of Europe. Now, these are called the animal images of Mughal paintings. And you can see how realistic they are. How realistic they are. You can understand that the scale is not an issue because the feet of the animals and the way they are represented in a certain sense of 3D-ness. And over and above that, they are represented in true colors, the most naturalistic fashion. Till today, these type of images of the Mughal painters goes for a lot of money, lots and lots of money, very expensive paintings. They are, most of them are decorated with very beautiful gold paint, also literal gold paint. Gold was mixed in paint itself. But now let's come to the fact that how Jahangir was becoming more and more, in a way, influenced by European, but more and more lavish and bigger and larger than life figures. So you see this. These are angels. These are European imagery. Further, if you see, he's literally standing on the globe, on the earth. Animal imagery is also important. Animal imagery is also important. That how you see there is a lion which is represented by Jahangir himself. He is with a goat who is nothing but a Central Asian Safavid ruler, and how he's embracing him. So therefore, there's a sense of power in this image. Halo become very important. Halo became a very important feature, which you can see here also. This is a halo. This is a sign of divinity. You will always find halos behind gods. In all Hindu gods, you will see a halo behind them. That's a aura which they have. The the problem of 3D-ness is gone because which which shoulder is in the front? One or two? Which shoulder is in the front? One. You're able to make that out because there is depth in this image. Depth in this image. And the expressions are more human like. More than that, the colors are more golden. The way they are making cloth is even more subtle. The the grandeur of Jahangir's image goes to a different level altogether when you look at these images. For example, holding a Jahan in his hand, Jahan, halo. The gold color has been adopted from Hindu images. Further, you see his feet. One is front, two is back, right? Can you see how the feet has now become the marker of how there is a difference between the two, and therefore, very simply, the issues of depth are going away. But this is a literal image in which he's standing on a globe. This was given by the Europe, by the British, standing on a globe with the angels. He is hitting a certain enemy in that regard, and the insignia of the Mughals, again something which was never there. There was never a royal insignia of the Mughals, but he's picked up from the English and the Portuguese that there needs to be a sign which represents the power of the king. So he's now developed an insignia, and here he is on the hourglass, sitting as the Jahan king with his halo, with the angels around him. Nothing more. Do you know who this person is? Who this person is? He doesn't blend in with the other people. Yes, this is Rowe, Thomas Rowe. Rowe was developed, was painted like this. His attire fully British, angels etching something. Are you getting how Jahangir's images have become lavish, portrait based, out of the world, have a grandeur, have certain imagery which doesn't even exist? Angels don't exist, but there is a angel. But the zenith, and in a way we can say that yes, Mughal painting had reached a certain point where they had a certain sense of maturity. Is this? This is Jahangir holding an image of, guess whom? Akbar. The globe this time is in the hand of his father. This was not possible before, which is to have a sense of perspective, a sense of expression. This has depth, this has 3Dness, this has sophistication, this has a certain sense of grandeur. Plus, this has technique. This technique of making two people in the same image. You know that he's holding the image in his hand. It is not looking weird. The way the colors are subdued, the halo still remains. This image is in a way a, like the Taj Mahal of architecture. It represents a certain maturity and a culmination of what Jahangir was doing. Jahangir did not joke around. And Jahangir was very serious about paintings. And this type of image is very simply a testament of that. Getting my point? Are you able to appreciate this? These are images. So these images are kept. Yes, they are miniature paintings, very well preserved. The Mughals kept it very well. The British used to keep it quite well. Unfortunately, most of the good paintings are in the Chor Bazaar of London, which is their museum. Which is they have most of the good best images which are there of Mughals are actually in the British Museum. They took it with them, but fortunately, I've been able to find the images in that regard. Was Jahangir? No, no, Jahangir was not painting it. Jahangir's painters were painting it. Do the halos show in God goddesses painting now that adopt? No, 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 Jitin. It's the other way around. Halos are always very common in Hindu imagery. This is a Hindu imagery which has been picked up. So very simply, these are images which represent a certain type of maturity which was unparalleled. This type of imagery was not even happening in Europe. There were very bland, pale images which you will see. By the time Aurangzeb comes through, he will give you a proper European image. The fact that the person is looking to the left or the right and the face is like this and not this is a very Indian thing. When you will start to make a portrait like this, the how we get a picture, this is a very European thing, to look into the camera. Rather, when we used to get portraits made in India, we used to look in the other way. The sense of otherness which comes through, that we look other in the different direction. So the image is made like this and not like this. This is something very European in that regard. Britishers could have packed up the Taj Mahal also if they were able to take it. Okay. But you have to give credit to the British when it comes to the Taj Mahal, that during the second World War and the First World War, both times they protected the Taj Mahal. They put up scaffolding. They made it look like a very old building so that the Germans could not bomb, specifically in Second World War, the Taj Mahal in that regard. So yeah, okay. Now, can we talk about Shah Jahan? Shah Jahan, is there any way to get the things that Britishers took from us? No. They claim that they are preserving it. They claim a lot of things. Let's first get Kohinoor back, then these images can come later also, not an issue. It's a matter of what we call as uh, diplomatic soft power, separate issue altogether. Can't we take them back? As I said, you can't just go and barge into the London Museum. There are images and artifacts which are much greater than this from Africa, which are preserved in their museums. If the British Museum starts to give things back, they have nothing left in that. Their museum what is British culture? What is their contribution to the world? Except for the Industrial Revolution, what have the British contributed? They have no culture. So very simply, British Museum, everything removed, they are nothing but thieves in that regard. Yes, they are the biggest thieves across the world. Across the world, from Africa to India to China to Japan, everywhere they went, they picked up anything they wanted. Let's not get into it. We have bigger issues. Once we become a 5 trillion economy, these things will not matter itself. As it is, the Britishers are right now not, as it is, they're in our feet right now in a way. So why take from a beggar in that regard? Okay, Shah Jahan. So Shah Jahan, his is one thing. He knows how to burn money, paisa jalana, and spending money somehow where nobody can spend money. Shah Jahan can find a way to spend money. And the way was that he started to add gold, real gold. Gold leaves were added as decorative device, or rather decorative item, not item, material, material in borders. He said, thoda, it's dull, aankhon mein nahi lag raha. He loved marble, so he made everything marble. In this also, he said, make it bling like anything, so that if I look at it, my eyes should not be able to look at it. So he started to add as much gold as possible. This is literally wasting money. Shah Jahan's contribution is more towards what we call as architecture, as we know. But see, the angels are still there. The angels are still there. The depth issue is totally resolved. The jalis are again represented. The halo is still there. Color is what is called as Rajasthani, Gujarati. So his contribution is very straightforward. He did not neglect painting, but was more a patron of architecture. Is painting not good? Jahangir better than Shah Jahan? Yes, that is the point. Jahangir is more mature. Shah Jahan is more flamboyant. Under him, again, previous tradition of portraits went forward. No illustrated books, no narrative books. Superimposition was happening when it comes to animals and scenes. He was adding now acrobats and everything what he saw under the British and under the Portuguese. He was adding that. Colors were more decorative. Embellishment was happening with gold. He developed a very interesting piece which is called the Padsha Nama. Padsha Nama is a voluminous book, gold plated fully, talks about his reign. And in the Padsha Nama, their painters were so expertised and so free, and so many painters were there that even servants were painted in that regard with a lot of detail. So Shah Jahan's contribution is just adding gold to the painting in that regard. Now, the the maturity of the maturity of Mughal paintings can be seen as been a painting which Jahanara actually commissioned, was the patron, which is called the Passing of Shah Jahan. Why am I saying that the maturity culminates here? Because you can see 1, 2, 3. Which pillar is in the front, or which is in the back rather? Which is in the back? 2. So they are able to show Petridura. They're able to show Petriduri. You have the Taj Mahal in the background. You have the moon in the background. You can see the realistic nature, the realism in the pillars. And the fact of the matter is, from the Yamuna to the Taj Mahal, this is how good they had become. That they were basically making paintings which were better than pictures in that sense. But this is Aurangzeb's wife, Rabia Duran. Aurangzeb's wife, Aurangzeb never wanted imagery, un-Islamic in nature. But sometimes when your wife says something, you have to do it. So his wife insisted that I want a copy of Taj Mahal. So he tried to make a copy of Taj Mahal, didn't work out. But Rabia Duran's image, this one, shows full transition to what we call as European style. You can see her way of eyes, the way she's looking forward, the shoulder placement, the color scheme, all actually fully are European. The way of looking towards it, towards the camera, but also not looking towards it, is a very European thing. So Aurangzeb did try, but he will obviously have not added anything. But we believe that full European transition had happened by this point of time. Now, as I said, bitter note when it came to executing culture itself. Fought with his brother, fought with his father, and he was not the one who kept the. Very simply, he closed the karkhanas and tasveer khanas. And once the patrons were gone, the loss of the Mughals was the gain of the Rajputs. The Rajputs will now start to take the migrated Mughal painters, and Aurangzeb will make sure that no Mughal painter remains in the Mughal Empire. With no patronage, they will go to the Rajput dynasties and into the Rajput principalities. And now Rajput paintings will start to develop with a very strong Mughal influence, except for Mewar. Now I'll finish this topic and then give you the summary itself. Because when we talk about the Rajasthani school of painting, Rajasthani school has a very strong Mughal influence, because in this, Mughal painters migrated to what we call as the Rajput sector, and therefore the thematic changes, but the concept remains, wherein the beat the color scheme, beat the fact that we are now back to murals. So because the Mughals could not represent it in walls, we started with murals and we are back to murals. Now they don't fear the fact that it is public or private. But if you look at, for example, the Amber and Jaipur school, this is a very beautiful image which is done on the Amber fort itself. This is a mural. Now, if you see, this is Lord Ganesha, but has a very heavy influence of Mughal painting. You can see that even the ceilings which are done, these are murals done on the ceilings. This represents or has a very strong influence of Peter Dury. So now what is going to happen is Rajput paintings, Rajputs are going to patronize these painters, but the influence will remain. So be it the Amber school, be it the Bikaner school, and be it the Bundi Kota Kalam school, all represent the certain type of Rajput. Plus the thematic has now become the epics, which is Mahabharata and Ramayana, love, and more than that, they were not beggars like the Mughals by this point of time. So there's a lot of use of gold, silver, and bright colors are there. Bright colors are there, done on very big surfaces. So this is an example of the Bikaner school. Can anybody tell me what does this represent? What does it represent? Yes, Lord Krishna and the Govardhan Parvat scene in that regard. So he's holding on his small finger the pinky finger, he is holding the Govardhan Parvat when there was a lot of rain. You can see Lord Indra here. And this is a very interesting adaptation of Mughal designs into a, what we call as Krishna Leela, Krishna Bhakti, because the way they are representing the animals, the way they are representing the faces, very Mughal, but the thematic has changed. But this is a testament of how Mughal painters actually did reach the Rajput dynasties. This is coming from the Bundi Kalam school. Can you tell me where have we seen this images? Same type of image? Yes, it is the same type of image as Jahangir and Akbar seen, wherein rather than now having Akbar, because you can represent humans, this is the reflection. So it is having a mirror, and it's very sophisticated that way. It's very vibrant colors, 3Dness is there, a little bit of stiffness is there, but still, but the way the face is represented, the way the clothing is, you can see translucent, translucent clothing is even represented. And this is not a joke that way. This is not a joke. But the zenith, the highest point of Rajput painting comes from the Kishangarh school, and which is called the Mona Lisa of India, or rather I will say that Mona Lisa is the Bunny Thani of the world, which is Bunny Thani. Why call her and disrespect her by calling her the Mona Lisa of India? Rather, we'll call her the Bunny Thani of the world or of the French. This is the Kishangarh school, and it has represented Radha, and this is considered the best example of Mughal plus Rajasthani plus Persian plus European, and therefore nothing but Indo-Islamic painting tradition, nothing but Indian tradition. And why is she considered so important? Where have we seen this? What is this and combination of? What is this a combination of? Can you tell me what is this a combination of? This is a combination of Ajanta plus Apabhransham. This is half closed eyes plus fish eyes. Plus fish eyes. So it is Apabhransham plus Ajanta. We have seen this very sharp nose. Where? Further, look at the work on her chunni. Look at the work on her chunni. It literally has work on it. Translucent nature. We can see her hair, but we can also see the work. We can see the detailing. We can see her jhumka, but we still know that she's wearing a chunni in that regard. The the jewelry is Mughal jewelry, but to have a lotus in the hand is again Buddhist. The Bani Thani is truly the Taj Mahal of architecture or the Taj Mahal of painting. She culminates in her all the traditions which we are doing since 5 o'clock. We started with ancient tradition, then we went to mural, then we went to Delhi Sultanate, we went to Mughal. And can I actually argue this, that she does culminate everything what we've seen till this point? Yes or no? Come on, last 5 minutes. Yes? Yes? Perfect. So, Kishangarh school, very important for this. Marwar school has what is called Rangmala. I will show it to you in the end. I don't clutter this theme too much. I will have miscellaneous topics. I will show it to you there also. It is the only school to not have any influence of any of the Mughal emperors is the Mewar school, because Rana Maharana Pratap never gave up or never accepted the sovereignty of Akbar or the Mughals, and therefore no influence at all. To finish off this theme, two standard types of paintings. One is called Tanjore and the other one is called Mysore. Later traditions, Tanjore painting is considered the most expensive paintings in the world. They were patronized by the Nayaks of the what we call as the successors of the Vijayanagara dynasty. Thanjavur Nayaks they're called. And very simply, why is it so expensive? Because this is Lord Krishna, but this is real gold. So, real gold is put into the painting itself with precious stones, and therefore these paintings become very expensive. So, gold leaf is used, along with that, gemstones are used. One painting can cost from 10 lakhs to 15 lakh rupees. When it comes to these, Smiling Krishna was the most common theme. Now, multiple themes are there. One of the most known painters when it comes to Thanjore paintings is under Sarfarozi Maharaj. He actually made sure that this tradition does not go out of vogue during the colonial period. But as I said, Thanjore paintings, decorative painting traditions, one of the most important when it comes to what we call as colonial and modern painting. Last is nothing but Mysore. Mysore paintings, again patronized by the Mysore kings, and Hindu gods and goddesses are represented. Why am I discussing Mysore? Because Mysore painting have a specific type of technique which is called using gesso paste. Gesso paste is that if you've ever seen the painter's canvas, a painter's canvas is very fragile. It's a cloth, but it's very fragile. So what they do is that they apply a paste which is called gesso paste, which is zinc oxide plus what is called Arabic gum. That makes that surface very hard on which they can paint. So in the examination, if you see the word gesso paste, it is a paste used by painters to make a surface very hard. The problem with Mysore painting is quite cluttery. Green is used quite a lot, and too many images or too many different uh, uh, different actors or individuals are there. But still, very important when it comes to our painting tradition as a whole. With this, we finish paintings, and on Saturday when we meet, we will do sculpture. But as I said, at we will meet at 10 a.m. We should have started this theme if not for that glitch, and there, or rather that issue. We will go from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Saturday and 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Sunday. That is going to be your last two classes, 23rd and 24th. In these 2 days, I will be covering everything which is left in art and culture, smaller themes, straightforward themes. I will bring Nitin Singhania with me. Banithani is from Kishangarh. I will bring Nitin Singhania with me. I will tell you what chapters to read, what chapters not to read. We'll be listening to music that day also. That is something unique which I do, which I'll make you listen to music so that you can develop it as a hobby. We'll be talking about hobbies for UPSC also. We'll also be talking about how culture is jeopardized and is vulnerable in India. So next week is going to be lighter. So before I end for today, can I successfully argue and say that the three big themes, architecture, be it ancient or medieval, and paintings, is totally etched in your mind, and now you are in a position to understand them better when it comes to the examination, be it mains or prelims. And now these themes make more sense without visual referencing. The only big now topic which is left is sculpture. After that, all themes are very straightforward and simple. So can I go and sleep tonight knowing that you do not have any issues in this, right? Perfect. Takdiz, if you liked all of this, you learned something new, very good. What shows the European influence which is inbuilt into Mughal comes through in the form of coloring in the Banithani painting itself. No issues. Ajanta cave, gate. No, don't have to remember gate and cave number. Don't have to remember that. Yes. So I will see you on Saturday. Remember, 10 a.m. Do not forget. It will be in your dashboard also, 10 a.m. Thank you for your patience. You showed a lot of patience when it came to the glitch, also the issue of the drilling itself. Thank you. Take care and have a very productive weekend. A weekday, if you are going to join me tomorrow for world history in the evening. So see you at 5 p.m. on Monday, and Tuesday is a holiday, as you know, because of Ganesh Chaturthi. Thank you. Take care and bye bye.